What chapter 8 tells us is that there is a time period. And I'd like to just briefly touch upon the study of time. Many people shy away from or just outright ignore the study of time when it comes to apocalyptic prophecy. And the reason being is a misunderstanding of the words that Jesus said to his disciples. And allow me to read that and explain it in better detail. Matthew 24, verse 36. Now, I'm not one that does cut and paste theology. I don't do cut and paste study of the Bible either. Cut and paste is a dangerous practice, although it's widely used. And what I mean by cut and paste is you take a certain verse out of the Bible, or a couple of verses out of the Bible, and you paste them onto a couple of other verses from a different part in the Bible. And after you've done this 3 or 4 times with several different verses, you come up with a whole different meaning than what was originally meant in the context in which the verses were given.
You combine that with pick and choose and it's lethal.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of sincere people who have done that. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with sincerity, it has to do with accuracy.
Right. When you study, make sure that you study the whole context of what was being presented. If you do not understand the context, you can easily misunderstand the meaning that was being conveyed by the information that you are studying. So Matthew 24, 36. But of that day and hour, no one knows. Not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone. Wow. But of that day and hour, no one knows. Not angels. Not the Son, but the Father. So we are told from this verse, we can't know the time. Jesus doesn't even know the time. How can we possibly know the time? So therefore, the study of time is fruitless. It's frustrating. It's pointless, because no matter how hard or how thoroughly you study time, you will never be able to accurately understand it, because even Jesus doesn't know. Well, if that was all we had, I would probably have to agree. But that is not all we have. And when we look at the whole process that Jesus framed his going away and his coming back, then this verse has a meaning which is different than if we just consider it all by itself. Turn to John, and I believe that it is John chapter 14. Yes. This is actually one of those memory verses that those of you who have been attending church for a while, you know, my dad was a minister, so I've been attending church since, you know, as long as I can remember.
You had to.
This was one of those memory verses. I know when I was just a little shaver that you used to remember. I'd memorize my memory verse so that every Sabbath in Sabbath school I could belt it out. And then on the 13th Sabbath I could belt out all 12 of the previous ones. And I'd get a little trinket from the 5 and dime. This is one of those memory verses, John 14, 1 to 3. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you. For I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way where I am going. So what is Jesus doing here? He's talking about, don't be troubled. If you believe in me, if you believe in God, believe in me. I'm going to God. And if it wasn't so, I wouldn't tell you a lie, is what he's saying. I wouldn't lie to you, and I want you to understand the whole process of why I have to go away. If I don't go away, I can't come back. And you kind of think, well, yes, that makes sense. But it's deeper than that. He's saying, if I don't go to the Father, if I just stay here with you, my whole reason for being here will be for naught. And then he says something interesting. I'm going to prepare a place for you where I am going. At my Father's house, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And I'm going there to prepare this place for you, and I will come again so that I can bring you to the place that I have prepared for you. Turn to Matthew 25, verse 1. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Verse 6. But at midnight there was a shout, behold, the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Verse 10. And while they, the foolish bridesmaids, were going away to make the purchase, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. Now I invite you to go ahead and read all of the verses connecting those, and in fact, when we are finished with our study in Daniel, we will be moving to Matthew chapters 24 and 25, where Jesus describes to his disciples the events that will occur at the end of time. So what I want you to see in those verses that we read is that Jesus very clearly context his going away and his return as a bridegroom going to prepare a place for his bride and returning to get his bride and take her to the marriage feast, to the wedding feast. Now when we understand that is the context of the process of the marriage that Jesus uses for us to understand what his going away and what his coming back will be like, then that gives us a much clearer and a different understanding of Matthew chapter 24, verse 36.